racism in medicine? Of course there is, but most people don't realize where a lot of these folks make lots of money and prey on the indigent, most often people of color in these very high, densely populated urban areas. Here's a story. A cardiologist with poor credentials wants to make a lot of money. Where's he going to go? He's going to go to an indigent area and open up a clinic, a cardiology clinic. Why? There aren't any other cardiology clinics in the area. The payer mix is poor and no one wants to go there. It's very hard to make money and be honest. If you're dishonest, you can make lots of money. Next thing you know, he's doing stress tests and all sorts of exams on people that don't need it. That's because Medicaid doesn't vet their patients. So basically, it's just an open checkbook for these people. Now, here's the story how I came to know about this. Somebody who started working at one of the hospitals I work at told me that she was asked to have an angiogram, a coronary angiogram, but she was young. She had no symptoms. She went to this clinic in one of these areas where she lived. She told me she had a stress test. I said, do you have any symptoms or risk factors? No, I go to the gym. I go to the gym every day almost. I exercise for over an hour. How could it be? Get me the records. The doctor refused. After a month, he continues to refuse until she goes in there and demands the record, because those records belong to you. Now, if the doctor's on my chart and you are on my chart as well, you can get those records, and I really suggest everyone join my chart. But in this case, he wasn't. What did the record say? Well, the record said the patient walks 1 to 2 blocks and has chest pressure and shortness of breath. Classic symptoms of angina, except she didn't. She had none of these symptoms. Multiply this poor person times 100 or more, and this person's banking lots of cash on these poor, unfortunate folks. Maybe the hospital that he works at is turning a blind eye because, hey, they're making money too. What do you do about that? Well, the patient needs to complain. Now, I've sat with Department of Justice officials in the past, and they're aware of a lot of this, but there's just so much of it going around, it's really hard to police it. So you have to take care of yourself. And this is what you should do. Make the trip, travel, go to a leading center. Maybe it's a bus ride or a train ride away, but don't go into the neighborhood unless you really have to. All the big hospitals usually accept government insurance. They have to. Got it? If you ever have a question, get a second opinion. But really be cautious about these clinics that open up in these underserved areas, especially if they're not affiliated with the.
No, this has been something going on for decades, man, and probably even centuries. You know, um, to me, where this falls, because I believe that if you have a particular evil in this world, then you have a lot of evils that spring off of it. Like I say, if you have an evil heart and you own a bank, then you're going to be evil to people. You understand what I'm saying? The things you can do to be more helpful, the things you can do to make sure these people don't get ripped off, you don't do because you want to rip them off. So when you have hate in the world, you have doctors who hate. And if you have doctors who hate, you have some black people who are going to pay the price for that. And this is another area where people try to tell you that this stuff don't exist. And this man is telling you right now, this stuff does exist. And which is why we have to, another reason, I know I keep going back to this, why we have to encourage our young people to go and do things with their lives educationally. Because black people are the most underserved people when it comes to the professions out there. We're underserved when we need lawyers. We're underserved when we need doctors. All of these things that we need in our lives, we're underserved in that. And that's because our people don't go and do those things. We're not even encouraging our young people to just, stick it out and get through that process. This is lack of a whole lot of different educations. But for every young black person, I tell them, go and be a nurse. Go and be something that can help your community, because we don't have a lot of them. But yeah, we come up short. And this is why things like this can happen. I always thank God for people like him who would expose the truth. but you have to be you have to find him. He doesn't exist everywhere, in these hospitals. Man, look, right now Roswell is being sued. I mean, got a class action suit against them for racial, responses to black people. And this is just not that. Is it? A lot of hospitals just don't care about black people, and they prove that. But if you come in there on Medicaid, I guarantee you they'll act like they're treating you because they're going to get paid like you wouldn't believe. But yeah, man, it's bad out there. But the problem is that we're not competitive. Our kids don't go out there to be doctors and lawyers and things like that. So, what's your take on that, Belief?
Well, I was gonna ask you, as far as I guess accountability on, I guess, the hospital's part. There don't seem to be any accountability when it like come to us.
Listen, man, the hardest thing in the world is to sue a hospital, sue a doctor. And then you multiply that times 10 when it comes to us. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not saying that we were right, but my mother died so instantly in the hospital at the hands of doctors. We thought for sure that, we could hold somebody accountable, and we couldn't. And when I mean instantly, people, I mean, my mother went in there and the doctor said, hey, don't worry, she'll be home tomorrow. This is very routine, blah, blah, blah. 15, 20 minutes later, they were calling my brother, and they had a code red or code blue or whatever it is in that hospital. And my brother just knew it wasn't my mother.
Hmm.
He just brought her there. The doctor just finished telling us that. Well, they stuck this big needle in her, and I believe they hit her heart with that needle. She went straight into full cardiac arrest and died right there. Now, my mother was 80, but she was a lead foot driving 80, funny, cognizant. I mean, she had all of her faculties. There was absolutely nothing really wrong with her to be an old lady. The doctor had just finished telling her, said, what do you do? Your bones, he said, your organs, everything in you, he said, is so sound, so good. He said, you got the bones of like a 50-year-old, and she's 80, and she did things to make sure, certain things went right. But 20 minutes after bringing her to the hospital, 20 minutes, they were yelling over the intercom system and blowing my brother's phone up, and he didn't know. He just gone to the cafeteria to get something to eat. He got his food, he set it down on the table. His phone started blowing up. He looked, he had 15 phone calls that he missed. He finally called them back. They said, please get down here. And they get down there, and they started saying my mother slipped into full cardiac arrest. My brother's asking, what does that mean? Well, by the time we went to see my mother, man, believe me when I tell you, she died on that table. They hooked her up to 20,000 different machines and had all these hoses and stuff running in her. And that's the last way we saw my mother. You know what I'm saying? So my mother, before that, my mother always said, she said, Roy, they kill old people in hospitals, and they really do that to old black people. My mother did not trust hospitals, but we got to go. We got to do something. We got to go somewhere, and look what happened. My mother went and, my mother, in her crew, she was the youngest one in her crew, the most vibrant, active, she run around with her grandkids. It was just amazing, man, the way she went. So yeah, I have little trust.